All right. Good evening. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the space that we're in tonight. Charis Books is turning 50 in November, a little less than a month away. Thank you. And we'd love for y'all to celebrate with us from November 2nd through November 9th. So if you want to learn more about that, you can come see me at the end. But tonight, we're here to celebrate one of our nearest and dearest, Samuel Ace. Normally, I just do a very quick introduction, but I'm going to do a little bit of a longer introduction because we love Sam. I've known Sam on the page since the early 2000s when my then writing professor, who happened to be one of his past loves, perhaps sensed a similarity between us and gave me his book, Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. Little did I know that I would one day have the pleasure of working with Sam on a monthly basis as he curated this wonderful series of genre and gender-bending poetics, now known as Meet Me There. This series has been such a gift. Sam just came to me and said, well, how can I be of service to Charis, this important space? How can I use my gifts? And he's brought all of his cool friends to Charis to read. And it's been so wonderful. He's created this community as a recent Atlanta transplant. And it's been this thing that we didn't know we needed until he built it. And so it's been such an honor to have you here, Sam. Sam is as generous a host as you all know, but it's also my great joy to celebrate this book tonight. It is part essay, part poem, part heart song, part lament. In its structural repetition, I want to start by saying, reminds me of nothing so much as the old carousel slideshow reels. Each sentence is a structural unit, superficially contained like a slide, and each contains a portal to a new emotional, familial, or geographic world. The poets Sam has gathered alongside him tonight are parts of that world, and so we're very honored that you all are here. And so I want to introduce each of them. I'll start with introducing Mara, who's on my far left. Mara MM, yeah, go ahead and is a Dyke ritual poet and performer from the headwaters of the Mississippi in Bemidji, Minnesota. Did I say that right? All right. Their poetry interrogates the pressures between sleep obsession and Dyke desire within the context of U.S. gun violence and arms of colonialism. Wheat pasting informs her practice by bringing guerrilla poetry to public space as acts of queer reclamation and visual disruption. They curate the Be Hot Read a Poem reading series to uplift local queer poets. Her work appears in Terse Journal, the Texas Review, and South Broadway Press. Outside from her chapbook, Only Interested in Everything by Meekling Press, Mara holds an MFA in writing and poetics from Naropa's Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poetics, where they taught research-based writing until recently relocating to Atlanta. So welcome. Next to them is Andrea Abi Karem. Andrea is a trans Swana punk poet, performer, cyborg. They are the author of Extra Trans. Oh my God. Yeah, I don't know why my brain is not. I just wanted it to be transmission. Villainy, and with Kay Gabriel, they co-edited We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetics. They are currently writing a poet's novel about crushes. Y'all know Sam, and Andrea is going to say more about Sam, so I am not going to reintroduce Sam, but I am going to introduce Soretta Morgan. Soretta was born in Appalachia, yes, and raised on military installations. Her work considers the ecologies and intimacies that materialize in the shadows of U.S. militarization. From 2018 to 2023, she lived between the Sonoran and Mojave deserts, where she organized with the grassroots humanitarian aid organization No More Deaths, as well as several community-based initiatives that centered wellness for BIPOC and immigrant communities. Her first full-length book of poems, Alt Nature, emerged from those experiences. She is also the author of the chapbooks Feeling Upon Arrival and Room for a Counter Interior. You can find out more about her work at sorettamorgan.com. You can also watch the YouTube videos of both Andrea's reading for We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetic, and Soretta's YouTube with us for Alt Nature on Charis's YouTube. So I'm now going to kick it over to Andrea, and they're going to share a little bit more about their relationship to Sam.
And Charis and everyone for coming. So it sounds like ER and I had a similar transcendent experience encountering Sam's work originally. So we've gathered here tonight to celebrate the launch of Sam Ace's new book, I Want to Start by Saying, out by Cleveland State University Poetry Center. You all are in for a sonically tantalizing literary treat. I first saw Sam read back in 2014 in the basement of the San Francisco Public Library for the monthly queer reading series hosted by Radar Productions. At the time, I was new to the world of poetry and just going ahead and breaking my lines, sometimes with a feeling, sometimes just for the hell of it, because, well, that's what poets are supposed to do. Then I saw Sam read, and his reading broke my whole world open. Poems could be letters. They could be lusty, sexy letters. They could be lusty, sexy letters about queer sex that caused flushed faces and sweat and cum to begin to drip from the audience. They could collapse time and geographical distance, history and fiction, love and desire. I'd had the thrill of hearing Sam read from Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. Though I never got my hands on an original copy of Home in 3 Days, I did find the title poem on some website, which I think has since disappeared, but the text has been reissued by Belladonna Press, and read it to anyone who I could get to listen to me. There's another reason I chose to dwell on this past reading. It was the first time I had borne witness to a trans poet reading trans poetry IRL. I was, and I'm a little shy to share this, an egg at the time, but after reading that, after seeing that reading, not for long. And to turn to the present, the book we're celebrating tonight, and I want to start by saying, Sam shows us the beginnings that become possible through the incantatory rearrangement of language, body parts, geographies, chosen and unchosen family, homes, and love when trans poets dominate language. And this is a quote from the book. I want to start by saying to my gorgeous friends, please stay alive. I want to start by screaming, the drones, the drones, the drones. To this day, a decade later, Sam's reading has been deeply informative for me and so many others. Sam Ace is a trans, genderqueer writer and sound artist. He's the author of most recently, I Want to Start by Saying, also Our Weather, Our Sea, Meet Me There, Normal Sex and Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash, and Stealth with poet Maureen Seaton. Forthcoming in 2025 is Portals, co-authored with the late poet Maureen Seaton. Please join me in welcoming Sam Ace to the stage.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Andrea, and everybody, Soretta, Maura, for being here, celebrating, and everybody here in the room and everybody out there. Soretta and Andrea and Maura, I know before I moved to Atlanta, and they've moved here now, so I hope that's a trend. I really do. So anybody out there who's online, come move to Atlanta. It's a really wonderful, cool, wonderful city. So yeah, come. Anyway, thank you. I just want to say thanks to ER and Dartrisha Rollins, who's not here tonight, but is so instrumental in helping organize things, and Sarah and everybody at Charis. And I think I'll just start. We're going to do something a little different. I'm going to read for a little bit, and then each one of us is going to read, and I'll come back in between folks. But I really wanted to celebrate the publication of this book with people whose work I love and I feel like I'm in conversation with all the time. So I'm just going to start at the very beginning, and I'll be skipping around, but this is how it starts. I want to start by saying I hear the filter in the turtle tank like a fountain. I want to start by saying like a fountain in the middle of a field of wildflowers. I want to start by saying that today would have been my father's 84th birthday, that he died 18 days before his 79th. I want to start by saying that he was young and that death took him by surprise. I want to start by saying that my mother died 9 months ago, less than 4.5 years after my father. I want to start by saying the beginning of this sentence. I want to start by saying that a child could have been born in that time. I want to start by saying that a whole year has gone by since my godchild's birth. I want to start by saying on Canada Day, I want to start by saying the fireworks on the porch of a former riverboat inn at Hatfield Point. I want to start by saying the fireworks mark the day. I want to start by saying I celebrate my godchild, not the nation. I want to start by saying my godchild now says bird and boat. I want to start by saying that both my sisters have children who are mostly grown. I want to start by saying I do not know them, the children. I want to start by saying I knew them up until my niece was 9 and my nephew was 7. I want to start by saying when my nephew was 2, he discovered a raccoon while looking out the window of the house in Austerlitz. He pointed and said, "Coo, coo," long before we could identify what he was seeing. I want to start by saying it began to rain last night. It's now past noon the next day and still raining, soft and constant, hidden under the sound of the water filter. I want to start by saying that it's difficult to come to the page. I want to start by saying that I can no longer find my father's last message. I want to start by saying that today I read about a German soldier who destroyed a small French town toward the end of World War II. I want to start by saying that the soldier tortured, then killed nearly every person living in that town. I want to start by saying that 75 years later, he is just now being tried for murder. I want to start by saying I want to call my father. I want to start by saying his voice might still be alive on an old cell phone buried in a box somewhere in my closet. I want to start by saying an archive. I want to start by saying how to retrieve the past. I want to start by saying there are so many versions. I want to start by saying that my closet is filled with intentions. I feel them every morning when I take out my clothes, get dressed, and close the door. I want to start by saying that the intentions are always waiting. I want to start by saying that last night, 9 people were murdered at an AME church in Charleston. I want to start by saying that yesterday, US soldiers in Nevada operating drones over Afghanistan murdered a family of 5. I want to start by saying my father would have cried watching Obama sing Amazing Grace. I want to start by saying that I cried, but what are tears? I want to start by saying that I cry whenever I see a baby being born. I want to start by saying on TV or in a movie. I want to start by saying it feels like a deep and shredding grief. I want to start by saying on TV. I want to start by saying, will I ever witness a baby being born? I want to start by saying, I want to hear my father's voice. I want to start by saying that I think through my fingers, my shoulders, my eyes when they are closed. I want to start by saying it's the movement of my hands on a keyboard that I love, not the residue or the aftermath. I want to start by saying not even the words.
Thank you, Sam, and thanks for gathering us today and for the warm welcome. Hi, I'm Maura, and thanks, babe. I'm going to read 2 poems, and I'm just going to read them continuously. So I'll tell you the titles. The first one's Belly, and the second one is after I tell everyone to watch the 1996 sensation Bound. You know the movie? Okay, yeah. It's a dyke heist movie, but anyway, so yeah, I just love how that movie explores the themes of dykedom in violence, and so yeah, so I'm gonna get started. I'm not trying to be nasty. We have to stomach the alarm of destruction. We have to plump ourselves with the skin and bone of invasion, fill up, flesh out. I know I'm feeling fattened with info. When I always pay with money, it goes to some sergeant or a person very, very interested in oil. This is something that makes the human mind kneel. It is of the utmost importance to the men behind the president and around the president of this nation and the other nation that the money I always pay with and you always pay with goes to a very, very important pursuit of weaponry. Push off from totality or ever always try something of the sort. This is what your mind is trying to do. What do you call it when you are a citizen and you are made to watch? What do you call it when you are met with not a whisper, not a father, but with gore? One more mistake leaves me to thinking. On the edge of ruining everything, I reflect on my own devices. I intend to be careful, to talk through every wall and call very quietly. You do prepare me and check if I would like to ride with you afterwards. An instance of mistaking where you do lie exquisitely on the floor, chafed and swollen with what I'm calling exhaustion. Your force fell out. I am not the calm one, and you are not the anxious one, and it doesn't make any difference. I lean on the table, and it doesn't make any difference. Please be something. When I do not arrive where we originally said, do wait for me. Mark a piece of your clothing to remember that I have been in your bed, and when you are with someone else, do picture me a while. All the moments. It is an occasion. I place my fingers lined with my cum into your mouth. Remember, it is an occasion. Anyone can say your name. I write it in water. It is an occasion. Before you told me you'd want me in any form, I was looking for snow. This confession touched me entirely and with great precision, walking at dusk, where I am still so young. I could love good and hot and near. 3 months is such a good indication of this. It's been so cold. In the theater, I know we love each other. It was inevitable. This fundamental ruthlessness of inevitability still creates new fantasy in me, proper fantasy where I'm afraid of its consequences. Say it to me with new pauses. Say it to me over and over. Say it to me until it's not interesting, rarely sustainable. Say it to me. In 100 years, it will be the same. It will mean the same thing as it did before. In 100 years, what is done will still be done and over. Is that something our minds can really achieve? When our country says money over gun, when I question how to use the word our. I question who says we. While something totally unimaginable is happening, the rest of us reach for a skill of discernment. Curtains, bags, roses, churches, and hospitals, and all the brown brick. In what way do we watch? In what way do they make us spectators? Sometimes, when I've absolutely forgotten who I am, I take a shower at someone else's house. We laugh together when we can't remember who I am either. My head hurts, but I get to sensing that I've been involved with the right kind of people. Maybe the wrong. Could I ever be forgiven? How I worshipped the thought of good doing, really. Instead, we manage the pain body by being superb about fisting. I bring a bouquet of my fingers inside you. There is still daylight. Nasty invasion, Neil money, gore force, code ooze, stop your humming. I said, stop your humming. Dread, brat watch. I came so close to coming out of there. Zoom death, sleep dyke, cry signal, plastic tongue, dread heart, fool chain. Follow this regimen. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thanks, Maura. Good.
All right.
I want to start by saying, I hear the door open. I want to start by saying my love has come home. I want to start by saying I have a lot of time, but I wait until the last minute to do anything. I want to start by saying we are now lying down in bed. He is writing, and I am writing. I want to start by saying I would rather distract myself downstairs with the news or the cat. I want to start by saying I will stay here, lying next to him in the silence. I want to start by saying we are eating lunch with my sisters. I want to start by saying that they look resigned or maybe sad. I want to start by saying that it's the December after our mother's death. We are seated in a delicatessen in Midtown New York. The other tables and the people at them all seem too close. I want to start by saying that I've ordered a Caesar salad and my love has ordered a hamburger. I want to start by saying that this is the first time I've seen my sister since the funeral. I want to start by saying that before our mother died, it had already been years. I want to start by saying that my sisters are staring at my love. I want to start by saying it's the first time they've met him. I want to start by saying that one of my sisters is 5 years younger than me, that between me and my other sister, there's only a year and a half. I want to start by saying that they believe I've betrayed the family. I want to start by saying they also think I'm dating someone too young. I want to start by saying I have no children and they each have 2. I want to start by saying, what is harm? I want to start by saying, did I harm? I want to start by saying, my sisters fear me. I want to start by saying, they worry about what is to come, like these sentences. I want to start by saying, I didn't think. I want to start by saying, I read, and then there was applause. I want to start by saying, who have I helped? I want to start by saying, life or silence. I want to start by saying, could I ever be quiet? I want to start by saying a spell inside my head, language I no longer own. I want to start by saying my love looks younger than he is. I want to start by saying that the sister closer to me in age looks anxious, as if she wants to get up from the table and leave. I want to start by saying she begins to talk about her career and her husband, who's ill with a slow-moving destruction. There's no cure, and he still works, but how long? I want to start by saying that since our mother's death, my sister has not spoken to me, except now at this lunch. I want to start by saying I always liked her husband, quiet and unassuming. He was always kind to me. I want to start by saying that I take a bite of my salad, but I'm not hungry. My love has barely touched his hamburger. I want to start by saying that the server asks if we need more water. I want to start by saying that my sister would not talk to me even before our mother's death. I want to start by saying that she has barely spoken to me for 30 years. I want to start by saying that her sadness is familiar, but I cannot say exactly what it is, or can I? I want to start by saying our mother's death. I want to start by saying that no matter how successful or beautiful my sister was, our mother said no one would notice. All they would see was how she looked. I want to start by saying that my sister told me this in tears at dinner one night when my niece was very young. That after a concert, our mother yelled these words at her in the middle of the night over the phone. I want to start by saying our mother's cruelty. I want to start by saying, was our mother drunk? I want to start by saying, my sister has always been beautiful. I want to start by saying, will she ever hear me say it? I want to start by saying, from childhood. I want to start by saying that our mother force-fed me homemade eggnog. I want to start by saying before bed because she thought I was too thin. I want to start by saying too strange or boyish. I want to start by saying that as a child, I often refused to eat. I want to start by saying our mother's diets. I want to start by saying our mother always thought she was too fat, her words. I want to start by saying she was obsessed with how things looked, too fat, too thin, too boyish for a girl, the wrong clothes, the wrong friends. I want to start by saying my clothes, my weight, my sister's weight, my mother's weight, my beard, my gender. I want to start by saying I inherited my father's baldness. I want to start by saying that unlike him, I do not have a comb over. I want to start by saying my mother would not be happy. I want to start by saying that the first time she saw my mustache after I began medical transition, she pointed to it and said, "What's that?" and let out a grunt of disgust. I want to start by saying that until that point, she had refused to see me for almost 7 years. I want to start by saying that sometimes her voice still reprimands me. I want to start by saying she acted as if her fears about what she believed others thought were true. I want to start by saying my mother's obsessions. I want to start by saying her husband and her houses. I want to start by saying her daughters. I want to start by saying, if you are reading this, I want to start by saying how shame has been passed through generations. I want to start by saying humiliation. I want to start by saying, what am I trying to say? I want to start by saying, I wanted to look like my father. I want to start by saying, my sister believes I do not care about the same things she cares about. I want to start by saying something slightly different. I want to start by saying I no longer feel sad about the same things, or do I? I want to start by saying my sister does not want to know. I want to start by saying that her children are not allowed to speak to me. I want to start by saying that her children obey. I want to start by saying that I invited my younger sister to have coffee. At first she said yes, then wrote to say she couldn't make it. I want to start by saying I stepped out of the family. I want to start by saying they stepped away from me. I want to start by saying, if you are reading this.
Hi, everyone. It's my luck to be among those celebrating you today, Sam. So I also came to know Sam first through Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. In the spring of 2016, I was a member of the Belladonna Collaborative, and a group of us were upstate New York, kind of mapping out what the projects for the next year would be. And the wonderful Diana Cage shared a copy of Home in 3 Days, or PDF of Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. And I remember taking it back to my cabin and reading it. And like the next day I wrote Diana something like, wow, that was a lot of fucking. Like, so I'm gonna start with one of the poems from toward the beginning of Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. It's not one with lots of fucking, so sorry. Prayer. I started to write, and the letter upset me. And I called and cried, and you washed the sheets and had me pray. So you said, and yes, I like lipstick, not on me, on you. You cried on the phone, overwhelmed by my love and yours, by all the too many words, by your days which go by now too fast with too much work and not enough time, by your cold, by and for desire. You cried in your home, sitting in your wide blue chair next to the low table, low chair, and the couch we made love on, which now holds your lover passed out on thick wine. You cried and asked if I was sleeping upstairs tonight in the guest room where you slept before you drove off into the dark. You cried because I said no, because I said I washed the sheets and tried to tell you why, because I woke thinking it was time to sleep in a cooler place, to sleep in the bed downstairs where I had slept for many years with my lover. On the side of the bed I chose near the window for quick escape, my back turned from the wide expanse of the mattress, to wake and to look out at my pine tree, an empty bird feeder, and everything that was safe and everything that kept me separate and alone. The night you called and cried, I did sleep downstairs, but before I slept, I also prayed. And I prayed again when I got up. And in the new morning, you said on the phone again, look, but don't touch. And for the first time, claimed me for your own. And I'm going to read one poem of mine that is also a kind of prayer. The revolution will not be televised, yet she She turns from the horizon and is waving hello. What rises first in the wilderness internal to love? Coming upon a cop vehicle on fire, the question is where to linger, when to return my eyes. In light of the most beautiful horizon, sleeping with heat by your side, position everything always the same way. The Glock, the cock, the pillow spray, and well-spaced formation, always the same order. The key is to continue with clarity. I stay ready, so I don't never got to get ready, an old friend would say. But he was talking about film, visual aesthetics. Here, the bewildered underlying. Every light on, but all the rooms. I don't never keep. I don't never quickly. I say, what is it that arrives in you? Progressive muscle relaxation, then I just. Another worn penny for the sex that doesn't come. Another mountainside of desert poppies. Scorched slope of the future that won't return and is indiscernible from the center of my hand. When I get out of bed, the air conditioner still isn't working, and Mingus on vinyl and I demonstrating how to best scramble soft eggs. Thank you.
Soretta Morgan. That was Soretta Morgan. Oh, thank you, Soretta. No, as a writer, I feel like I've been through many lives, and what came out 25 years ago or 30 years ago sometimes feels very close, and sometimes I feel like, who was that person who wrote those things? Thank you for reminding me. I think they're all still in here somewhere. You can't see some of this work, but the unusual thing about this book for me, the new book, is that it has sentences in it. And I say that because much of my work, not all of it, but most of it, has no punctuation or no sentences. And in my effort to, I didn't plan to do something different, but this is what came out. And all of these actually have periods and some punctuation. I want to start by saying that when I was 6, my father's parents moved to the country. I want to start by saying at Sunday brunch, my grandfather said they wanted to get away from downtown. I want to start by saying what that meant. I want to start by saying to live around white people. I want to start by saying that when I was 10, my family moved to a Tudor-style house in Shaker Heights, not far from downtown Cleveland. I want to start by saying my grandparents did not approve the house was too close to downtown. I want to start by saying that my grandparents' new house sat on 3 acres of lawn. I want to start by saying that 3 large weeping willows stood close together in a shallow depression near the middle of the backyard to help with drainage, my grandfather explained. I want to start by saying that every person who lived on our new street in Shaker Heights was also white. I want to start by saying 1964. I want to start by saying that I believe 10 was the best age. I had finally arrived at 2 digits, and 1 plus 0 equals 1. I want to start by saying that the brothers across the street played outside with their grandfather's rifle from World War II. The stock was made from honey-colored wood. I want to start by saying I love the sound of its metal bolt when it turned and clicked into place. I want to start by saying that a black Ford Thunderbird with a porthole window sat in their driveway. I want to start by saying the mansions at the end of the street backed up to a golf course. I want to start by saying the sand traps on the golf course became trenches for our war games. The golfers were our enemies. I want to start by saying that we got kicked off the golf course almost every time we played there. I want to start by saying there was a rumor about the Van Sweringen brothers who built Shaker Heights. I want to start by saying single beds in the same room. I want to start by saying the brothers never married. I speculate. I want to start by saying when they woke up in the morning, did they share their dreams? I want to start by saying that the Van Swerigens wrote restrictive covenants into their plans. I want to start by saying that in the 50s and 60s, Jews and Blacks moved into Shaker Heights. I want to start by saying that the press said they were welcomed. I want to start by saying they were not welcomed. I want to start by saying the language of my childhood, what was said around the dinner table. I want to start by saying WASP. I want to start by saying something specific. I want to start by saying 3139 Montgomery Road, a bigger house than the one we moved from, but smaller compared to the mansions at the end of the street. I want to start by saying another 16. Oh no. There's material in the book that I haven't read, but I talk about myself as being obsessed with numbers. So that's all these references to numbers. I want to start by saying another 16. Oh no. I want to start by saying that the woman who cleaned my ex-wife's house told her that the number 16 was dangerous. I want to start by saying my ex was superstitious. I want to start by saying we shared certain beliefs. I want to start by saying that when I was 10 and a half, my mother forbade me to wear jeans or to play with the boys across the street. I want to start by saying that a website says, quote, the city and its residents made national headlines in the 1950s when they re-examined years of restrictive covenants. Before that, no Jews, no Blacks. I want to start by saying that I attended Malvern School in Shaker Heights. I want to start by saying in the 70s, quote, racial balance continued in Shaker schools through a voluntary busing program. I want to start by saying that despite the claims of this public history, no one in my 4th grade class was Black. I want to start by saying when the Jews and Blacks moved in, the WASPs moved out. I want to start by saying dinner table explanations. I want to start by saying the remaining WASPs lived in big houses at the end of the street, the houses that backed up to the golf course. I want to start by saying we thought their backyards belonged to us. I want to start by saying that I thought 3139 was an English tutor, but a real estate website says French Normandy. In the photos, the interior looks utterly changed, a redone kitchen, silk curtains, a closed-in porch. I hardly recognize any of it, except for the placement of the couch in the den where I threw up the eggs my father tried to feed me one morning when I had the flu. Perhaps also the pachysandra beds where my mother planted in the front yard. I want to start by saying that today, 2 years' worth of taxes equal what my parents paid for the house in 1963. I want to start by saying I sometimes think about returning to Cleveland. I want to start by saying the poets Russell Atkins and Julie Patton lived there. I want to start by saying that to get to school, I walked 2 blocks and across South Woodland to the end of Montgomery Road. I want to start by saying that one Sunday morning, I decided to teach my younger sister to ride a bicycle without training wheels. I want to start by saying that we took our Shetland sheepdog with us when we went outside. I want to start by saying that his name was Beaver. Beaver was a year old and loved to herd everything, including his humans, including cars. I want to start by saying that when we were leaving the house, I could not find a leash. I want to start by saying that when we reached South Woodland, Beaver ran into the street to chase a car. Almost immediately, he was hit. I want to start by saying killed. I want to start by saying the car stopped. A man got out and carried Beaver over to the sidewalk. I want to start by saying I panicked and ran home to get someone. I want to start by saying I left my little sister with Beaver and her bicycle on the sidewalk. I want to start by saying that after Beaver died, I could not cry. I want to start by saying shame. I want to start by saying horror. I want to start by saying my mother in tears. I want to start by saying she did not yell at me. I want to start by saying I could not sleep. I want to start by saying my parents brought me downstairs. I want to start by saying that I sat on the floor in the living room. I want to start by saying they sat above me on a couch with drinks, vodka on ice, scotch on ice. I could not look at them. I could not cry. I want to start by saying that the Huff neighborhood of Cleveland burned in the July before I went to junior high school. A white bar owner had refused a Black customer a drink of water. I want to start by saying that my mother began to talk about buying a gun. I want to start by saying that my parents argued about this loudly and often. I want to start by saying, what if? I want to start by saying, like when she threw dishes against the wall. I want to start by saying often. I want to start by saying, if she came after me. I want to start by saying, would she do it by a gun? I want to start by saying there were riots for weeks, 4 people were killed, all of them Black. I want to start by saying that when I was 12, the city was on fire. I want to start by saying that the history I learned in school had no bones. I want to start by saying that the teachers at school did not talk to us about the city that was on fire like it wasn't our city or anyone's, or that it didn't exist. I want to start by saying that every day we had French class. I want to start by saying that when I lived in Shaker Heights, I often dreamt of dungeons and torture. I woke up sexually aroused. I want to start by saying I smelled something rotting.
Hey again. Thank you, Sam, for bringing us all together. And it's a gift to get to read with you, Saretta, Sam, and Maura, of course. And thank you all for coming out on a school night. I'm just going to read a couple pieces from my book, Villainy. The end of fascism looks like centuries of queers dancing on the grave of capitalism, the state, colonialism, Nazis, racism, oppression. It will be a grand party, even grander than Mardi Gras, and there will be no reason to sleep because there will be no need to work, and there will be such a revelatory pallor to the whole thing. The photos will be exquisite and the libations and snacks fucking delicious. There will be a giant dance party and Club Chai will DJ and it will be at the Stud and we'll all fucking dance until we sweat hard and makeup runs between faces, a transference, a transfusion of glam, a fusion of sweating bodies into a whatever singularity, a transfusion out of a fucking oppressed existence into a revelry, a full-blown revelry of queerness and desire that we have only now just barely begun to imagine, just barely begun to imagine, just barely begun to imagine. A slow song comes on. It's called The Leaving Song. The crowd pushes forward, but there is no longer a forward to break into. The crowd tries anyway until my feet are no longer on the floor and your feet are no longer on the floor. And I press my hand against your cock while I'm pressed against so many other people, and so many other people are pressed against you. Some of them are the same and some of them are just more, and our feet are off the ground. You are moaning. Some of the mass is concerned that you are going to pass out, that the possibility of a singularity unbecoming a singularity is beyond the present, is too soon. Our feet are off the ground. The crowd pushes forward. Your cum covers the back of my neck in sweat, the back of my hand in sweat and cum, and the others pressed against me cover me in their own sweat. You begin to fall. I pull you up so you don't fall beneath the feet of the expanded self. I want a better apocalypse. This one sucks. So why don't you just fuck me out of reality? I'm going to read a couple very short Pride poems. Have any of y'all ever been to San Francisco Pride? Okay. Have any of y'all heard of Courtney Love? Okay. SF Pride number 4, fucking Courtney Love on a dumpster. My fist wrapped in cum and her cum dripping into the trash beneath. Was there ever a better hybrid? Her urging while people wait in line for the club. What do we define as public trash transfers from private to public? Export ubiquitous problem and aesthetic bliss. Coming up new and inhale doll skin. Fucking further into Hollywood fantasy. Elbow deep in Courtney. SF Pride number 5. After Dyke March, I went to the hot tub orgy. A few days later, I got evicted. Last poem. Poetry as Forces after Cecilia Vicuña. I ask questions like how to weaponize my own body or what's left of it. How do we weaponize ourselves? How to weaponize the poem, words as weapons, give the poem teeth, overflow its vacancies with sharpnesses, momentary, transitory, criminal aesthetics, an unpublished sketch of affinities, explicit revenge fantasy and pride orgy. Accumulation becomes a book, a constellation of bruises, a blockade, a dance party on the freeway, alongside from within, erupting out of, we sharpen our teeth and make attempts, glass breaking, disruption, simultaneous. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. So thank you again, Soretta and Moira. Andrea, this passage will conclude the reading, and we're going to have a little discussion afterwards if we have time. So anyone has questions, please ask. Also out there and online land, please can. I just want to thank the folks at Cleveland State University Poetry Center, my editor, Carol Pagel, and the whole crew there, Hillary Plum and Zach. This has been just an incredible, wonderful publishing experience. That not all publishing experiences are wonderful, and these folks have been just fabulous. So I just want to thank them. Also, this next passage is about Cleveland again, but it's also references a friend of mine, an incredible poet, Julie Patton, and who appears in this book. And she goes between New York and Cleveland, mostly in Cleveland these days, and just an amazing, amazing poet. There's a whole issue of Chicago Review, I believe, that just came out with many, many folks doing tributes to Julie. So that's who this is. That's who I'm referring to in this passage. I want to start by saying that yesterday we drove from Chicago to Cleveland. I want to start by saying that yesterday was my parents' anniversary. I want to start by saying that we are staying at Julie Patton's high up in the trees with Janice Lowe and R.J. Paul and Noj. I want to start by saying that Julie's house is many houses, a tall brick building that once held several apartments. I want to start by saying that Julie and I both grew up in Cleveland. I want to start by saying that last night we all read to each other or sang. I want to start by saying that we woke up to sirens racing down East Boulevard. I want to start by saying Rockefeller Park in Glenville. I want to start by saying the lake, a far ocean. I want to start by saying that Cleveland smells like home, like rust and dirt and fallen leaves. I want to start by saying that Julie and I did not meet until we both lived in New York. I want to start by saying that Julie's mother was a painter, so was my mother. I want to start by saying that my mother's art did not know Julie's mother's art. I want to start by saying, who is a mother? I want to start by saying the large rooms of the apartment building on East Boulevard. I want to start by saying the fields outside Julie's window, the gardens and the farms. I want to start by saying deep summer, art filling every room. I want to start by saying Virgie Iselle Patton, Julie's mother. I want to start by saying the building ghosts then and now. I want to start by saying the cars and the sirens. I want to start by saying the boiler. I want to start by saying Virgie and her paintings. I want to start by saying I did not know her. I want to start by saying my mother's aspirations. I want to start by saying she took us to museums, art, and natural history. I want to start by saying a yearly subscription to Severance Hall and the Symphony. I want to start by saying the Cleveland Institute of Art just down the street from the Cleveland Institute of Music, all the institutes. I want to start by saying theory lessons beginning at 4 years old. I want to start by saying, did they know each other, my mother and Virgie? I want to start by saying, I know so little. I want to start by saying my great-grandparents were Jews from Minsk, or was it Vilna? I want to start by saying the boats they came on. I want to start by saying I'm not sure. What is my memory? I want to start by saying a woman in a sheer nightgown, my father's grandmother floating through dark rooms, diaphanous curtains, possibly in one of those apartments on East Boulevard. I want to start by saying I can no longer ask my mother or my father. I want to start by saying, what am I trying to say? I want to start by saying that my mother bought whole shelves of large coffee table art books. I want to start by saying I long to know her. I want to start by saying she too was a child of Eastern European immigrants, first generation American. I want to start by saying she tried to give us something she did not have. I want to start by saying she made my father throw away his jazz collection. I want to start by saying an assumption of culture, white European, classical music, and the bones of indigenous peoples in the museum. I want to start by saying that the thought of running out of money terrified her. I want to start by saying that even so, we moved often into bigger and bigger houses. I want to start by saying, am I still a child wandering through those rooms? I want to start by saying, but at whose house, Julie's or my mother's? I want to start by saying that sometimes I want to go back to see but not stay. I want to start by saying a bronze sculpture on a tall white pedestal, my mother's. I want to start by saying the orange and red bodies of Virgie's women warm on the walls. I want to start by saying the blank faces of museum curators. I want to start by saying who gets to choose, who chooses. I want to start by saying that outside Julie's house, we walk through fields. I want to start by saying how green and how wild. I want to start by saying the wind. I want to start by saying, who am I in this? I want to start by saying a daughter or a son. I want to start by saying my mother wanted to be noticed. I want to start by saying who was passed over by whom. I want to start by saying the art I saw. I want to start by saying who made the art I did not see. I want to start by saying my home and the mess of it. I want to start by saying that in all her houses, my mother wanted to protect the polished wood floors. I want to start by saying there was always paint on my clothes and on the floor of my room. I want to start by saying I could not contain myself. I want to start by saying I was watched. I want to start by saying there was always someone to clean up, to put things back in order. I want to start by saying I can still hear my mother shouting, "Do you ever learn?" I want to start by saying the white walls of a gallery. I want to start by saying, what is the aspiration of white walls? Whose? I want to start by saying my mother could make a beautiful room. I want to start by saying that we went to the same museums, Julie and I. I want to start by saying, where do paintings get made? For that matter, words. I want to start by saying Virgie and my mother shared at least one institute. I want to start by saying, what did it mean to each of them? I want to start by saying, where am I now? I want to start by saying, I need to make a phone call. I want to start by saying the smell of leaves. I want to start by saying what fits on the velvet green walls of the museum. I want to start by saying preserved. I want to start by saying whose legacy. I want to start by saying the bones of someone's mother in the Natural History Museum on University Circle. I want to start by saying my mother scraped the layers of paint off of all the woodwork every time she moved. I want to start by saying that after her death, most of my mother's paintings were stored and hidden away. I want to start by saying who gets seen. I want to start by saying that when she applied to art school, my mother had 3 young children. She was told by admissions they didn't want housewives. I want to start by saying, did they take classes together? 2 women, 1 Black, 1 white. I want to start by saying the men in the corridors with paint on their pants. I want to start by saying they were allowed. I want to start by saying the smell of turpentine. I want to start by saying the residue. I want to start by saying whose models, whose version of art history. I want to start by saying I aspire to mess. I want to start by saying that today the mess is in this bed. I want to start by saying I am trying to write it all down. I want to start by saying, will I ever leave my mother's aspirations behind? I want to start by saying, leave the dust. I want to start by saying, what is left of that building, the Art Institute? I want to start by saying the circular hand washing stations, the photo labs, the dark hallways now under a grassy field. I want to start by saying, where do we hang the mother's paintings? I want to start by saying, who taught us about beauty? I want to start by saying, I smell rust. I want to start by saying, I smell Cleveland. I want to start by saying, Julie's rooms on East Boulevard. I want to start by saying, just down the road, half-draped models lay surrounded by easels, window lit. I want to start by saying all of the rooms and what they held. I want to start by saying the building stand, still there and not, in silhouette against the dark earth, the lake and the dirt. I want to start by saying thank you.
Nope. It's a party. So now Sam and sort of have mics that we're gonna slowly unveil here. Okay. Everybody's got their mics. And we wanted to just open it up for y'all to maybe ask each other a question or two about your work, or I don't know, since each of you encountered Samuel's work earlier in your life, maybe, you know, if you want to talk about something that echoes in your work.
I have a question for Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you were reading, I was thinking about the way that you've formed the book, the kind of refrain of, you know, I want to start by saying, like there's a way that the form also like points to everything that's not included. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, as you were deciding how to tell these stories and like kind of which details to kind of compose and what to leave out, if there were things that you felt like didn't need to be in the physical book itself, but that you hoped the book would present opportunities to talk about.
Thanks, Zaretta. That's actually a great question. I set myself up with, I was coming out of a kind of a dry spell of writing, and at that particular time, I was pretty nomadic when this book first started, and I was kind of obsessed with being clear. And I set myself that prompt, which is the beginning of each of those lines, or most of them. I want to start by saying and allowing myself to, no matter what came at the end of those words, to put it down. And it was an effort to really cut through my, and perhaps all of us have this, that internal censor that says, okay, you can tell this story or you can tell this story. I've had a few different ways of getting through that in my life and writing life. But at that particular time, it felt like I needed those words at the beginning. And I talk about throughout the book, the process of writing. So it came kind of organically, and the themes that go through the book or that weave through the book came because it felt like, and maybe still does, the way my mind works, or maybe all of our minds work, where the moments of the present are intertwined with so much memory and resonances of memory. So a lot of that came very organically. And then in the editing process, there wasn't a huge amount that I took out. I felt like, if anything, I wrote into it. You know, I kept writing into it. What it has done now that this kind of solid book has come out is that it feels like it sparks places that I want to go more deeply into. And a current project that I'm working on, which like this, which feels like a book-length poem or an essay, or I don't really care what it's called, but I'm thinking of what I'm writing now as, I tentatively call it a fictional memoir in that way, that because so much of it is memory and real, but so much of it goes beyond that. So I don't know what genre it'll fall into. I don't really care. Does that answer some of your questions?
You did in there, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, Sam. So I was thinking about some of your earlier work, Home in 3 Days, and lots of your epistolary poems. And I was reading through, I want to start by saying, and to me, it was feeling like a perversion of the epistolary in some way. And so I was wondering if you could talk about letters in the new book.
Did you say aversion or a perversion?
I said perversion.
Okay. I like that. In this book or my new project that I'm working on?
Or both.
Yeah, well, I'll say that true. I feel like this was letters in some ways to myself. It's that internal monologue, and that I'm so aware of, like I say, and that there's so many versions of a story, depending on who's telling it, and depending on my understanding of something at a particular point of view. And I wanted all of that in there. And the process of writing is also very much a part of that. I am, this new project that I was just talking about is an epistolary project, in that I'm writing letters between me, Sam, and Linda, which is my birth name. There are letters that go back and forth between the two of them. And the reason I call it fictional is that the characters become not me and not Linda. They actually do lots of things that are as much fiction as anything else. But I love that space in between, that where a letter is it's a particular kind of communication. It's so different than a conversation that I would have with you. But I aspire to a reality that where my conversation, that I can be fully myself. Or
I have a question. Yeah. So the project that you're talking about right now, that you're describing in terms of letters between you and Linda, is also how you introduce the reprint of Home in 3 Days, Don't Wash. So this is something that you've been doing for a little while. I wonder if you can talk about how that process has evolved, especially as you were doing it like through writing this book.
Well, Soretta's talking about I wrote an introduction to this book, Meet Me There, Home in 3 Days, Normal Sex and Home in. It was a reissue of my first two books, but there's some new material in it, and I felt like, the Normal Sex came out in like 1994, so I felt like I wanted to give context to that writing, who I was at that time, what I was doing in life, what was happening, how that work started to evolve. And the way that I felt I could best do that was to write these letters between Linda and Sam. So there's history in there, there's history of my life, but also in context of where the present was and is. Maybe I love that all of those, in consciousness, all those things are together. They don't disappear, and I don't feel like my life pre-transition has disappeared. I've never been one to believe in dead names in that way. That I really want all of that to be a part of who I am. There's some amazing writing out there that I think does that. I want to refer back to T.C. Tolbert's Letters to Melissa, where T.C. Tolbert is a poet who writes to Melissa, his birth name, the name he was assigned at birth. Beautiful, very, very, very incredibly specific and wide-ranging observation about that relationship and all of the desire that is in that relationship. In the work this project I'm working on, Linda has a big voice. she is sometimes critical of Sam. She's sometimes, she's flying around all over the place. So in some, she's sort of this she's like she just flies through the world, and she still exists. It doesn't. She didn't disappear, and she's become someone completely different, and corrects history all the time. Anyway, I hate to talk about it too much because I don't know if I'm living up in the writing to what I hope it is yet. So,
well, just because it's coming right on the heels of this, I'm wondering if you could say how you feel like writing this book prepared you to engage with Linda in the way that you are now.
Probably in many of the ways I just talked about. Looking from this vantage point at my own history, my family's history, how history was unfolding when I was a child. Also in light of thinking about children, thinking about history, what's said and what's not, how learning happens. The complexity of our lives. I feel like I'm constantly changing, that there's not a fixed point, so that I always feel like I'm bringing in new information, or new information is coming into me. I also feel like that we're seeing in this time a repeat of things that have happened over and over and over again. This horrible situation in Gaza, in the Middle East right now, these reenactments of trauma that feel like they're never, ever, ever resolved, or that humanity just keeps doing its utmost best to engage in the worst possible behavior. Anyway, I guess the older we get, the more that repetition keeps feeling like it's happening over and over again. So yes, I feel like every single piece of writing prepares me for the next.
I see that repetition with even in your book, the repeating the same line. I'm also really appreciating from your reading tonight just how generous you are with sharing just such like deep internal processes, like with your family, and that like really just was a wow engaging moment for me. And so I'm wondering and curious about what sustains you or fuels you to be able to continue to share yourself with your readers.
It's terrifying. It's really terrifying. I guess what sustains me is I feel like it's important to say, and maybe it's life-giving in that way. I feel like I'm in a lifelong process of awareness, of becoming aware, and in that awareness is also empathy. You know, I worry that I certainly don't want work to come off as one-sided in any way at all. I want, you know, that sense of empathy in me. I do want to be able to share that, and I also want to be able to share the reality. I mean, so much of our engagement with each other is on the surface of things. It really is, and I feel like as you know, as writers, we produce this stuff, and it's in print, and it, you know, it's there, but it feels like it's kind of frozen. So I mean, and I get more and more interested. I want the work to reflect the process of what's happening inside me, but also what's happening as I put something on the page, if that makes sense. Because, you know, that's what I love when people share that with me, and I love that in writing. Yeah, the other work that I was thinking about that I feel does a similar thing is I don't know if any of you read Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. His novel, not his, I mean, his poems are wonderful, but there's a beautiful weaving of consciousness in that book that I feel I love what he does with that.
Yeah. Well, thanks for facing that terrifying feeling. It's very appreciated.
Are there any questions from the online?
Or the IRL group?
Or y'all?
Yeah, nobody online, but any of y'all. Y'all have also done such a wonderful job. I think maybe we can wrap it up and give folks time to interact one-on-one and get their books signed. We have copies of everyone's who's up here's books. Not Mara's book yet, but we will make
soon.
that happen. But soon. We have all of Sam's books. You've heard so much about his past books also. So if this is something that you're like, oh, I need to get the full back catalog as well, you can do that. And we'd love for you to hang out and get your books signed and, you know, chat with each other as poetry lovers. But thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Samuel, for everything that you do for the poetry community, for Charis, just as a mentor and a friend to so many. It really means so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Sam.
Happy Pride. Happy Pride.